Business Spotlight, brought to you by Cross Rhythms and Baba Baboon.
I'm Sonia Farrell and this is Business Spotlight in partnership with Cross Rhythm City Radio and Baba Baboon. Joining me in the studio this week, we've got the lovely Kirsty Nelms of Peacock Digital Marketing. Hello, Kirsty.
Hi.
How are you today?
I'm good, thank you.
Good. And you found the lovely studio here, okay?
Yes, I managed to navigate my way over here all right.
You just got to navigate your way back out to the large studio now.
Yeah, exactly.
So, Kirsty, you started your own business a few years ago in 2020.
Yeah.
And prior to that, you actually have got a background in journalism and media yourself. So how did you, or why did you, should I say, transition from that sort of career and decide to set up on yourself?
Well, I think a lot of people who have been journalists do make the transition into either like PR, marketing, that kind of thing, because there's a lot of transferable skills there. Also, like when I joined the industry, everyone was just kind of like, sorry, just because there's so many redundancies all the time. You end up doing the jobs of about 5 different people. And it does just get to the point where a lot of people want to kind of have a bit more regular 9 to 5 and have a bit of a change, really.
Yeah, and the media, the media landscape itself, you will know. I remember it, how I remember it when I was working in the media and journalism when I first started my career to what it's like now. But for you as well, how have you seen the changes and how it's going forward within the media?
So a lot of the kind of smaller newspapers and things that I was used to working on, unfortunately, they do tend to close down, and then things tend to be managed from like a hub. And we also have a lot of people like freelancers being used to write content and copy. It's become a lot more digital quite often. Places will have like a digital team, and they'll kind of expand what they're writing about as well. Whereas the small local newspapers, it's all about local people and local stories. Whereas I think it kind of changes a bit and becomes like, what is the world talking about, and what are kind of the trending topics and stuff like that.
Yeah, so like you say, the internet and the power of the internet, and you yourself, it can have such an influence in you yourself, digital marketing and everything that you do. But apart from, the digital side, there's obviously quite a lot of research that goes into sort of marketing plans, processes and all that sort of thing. How important do you see that research side? Because even as a journalist, used to do research. How important do you see research as well in marketing now?
I honestly think it's vital. It's probably one of the most important skills within the whole scope of marketing. I've been helping quite a lot of smaller businesses lately and talking to them about doing that competitor research, industry research. I've been talking about how to do a pestle analysis and how to develop personas for kind of different kinds of people that might be interacting with your business. And the amount of great ideas doing those exercises can unearth and help you to better understand all aspects of your marketing. It's amazing what difference it can make.
Yeah, and it must be quite an in-depth process as well. Does it take quite a long time if you're just starting off with a client, to set that first piece of work in?
Yeah. So it's kind of, the client always wants you to start straight away as soon as you can, as I'm sure you know. But yeah, there is a lot of taking the time, talking to the client and really getting to know their products and services and the industry as a whole. So there's a lot that kind of goes on behind the scenes, like in terms of like reading different publications and quite often I'll suggest to the client, this is being talked about a lot at the moment. Is there any and that's what you do quite a lot of the time as well. But yeah, you just see if there's anything that's lacking that you can kind of incorporate into their marketing strategy.
And the thing is as well, Kirsty, you'll understand where I'm coming from on this. There's so much content now out there and so many different channels in which you can sort of publish content, share content and everything like that. How do you find that can sometimes be, difficult as well to maybe translate and explain to maybe sort of a new client who's never really done any marketing before?
Yeah, I think marketing as a whole, it seems like everyone is so like busy doing what they do and running their business, and their job isn't to market their business, and I don't expect them to know about all aspects of marketing. It's kind of my job to do that. And I do explain what I need to the client in a way that they can understand. But I totally agree with what you're saying. It is like information overload, and sometimes there's a lot of pressure, and clients are like, oh, do we need to be on all of the platforms? So I'll usually just say, you know, like pick 2 and focus on 2. But also, you know, do your customer insight surveys, interview your customers, gather all that information to know which 2 would be maybe the best to pick, and what topics to talk about. But when it comes to researching things as well, there are just so many sources that you can look at. So just trying to have a look at who has written the articles, if they've like cross-referenced any sources. And then I always just say like, just always cross-reference stuff. You know, when I'm researching something, I never just read one article, even if it's a credible article, but I won't just read that and go, oh, that must be how it is then. That must be right. I always cross-reference and read a bunch of different articles, and then you can pick up on a theme to know like the truth. Whereas I think, you know, with AI and things, it is becoming a bit harder to do that. Yeah,
and coming on to AI, as you've mentioned, I mean, what are your thoughts on AI as it is now? You know, within marketing itself, are you for AI or are you totally against it?
So I guess sitting somewhere in the middle, really. I think it can be a really useful tool if it's used in the right ways, but I also think that it can easily be used in the wrong ways as well. It seems like every piece of software that we as marketers use, there is some sort of AI integration that is constantly kind of, as soon as you open the software, it's like, use this. And I think it's our responsibility to explore some of those options and see what it's all about. But also kind of learn how to use the tools in a way that's not going to be detrimental. I think that's like really the important thing of using your best judgment a lot of the time.
I mean, do you think it's like, I suppose, talking from me, you know, looking at social media as well, when the social media sort of started to boom and all the different channels started to go, again, yeah, it can be very useful, they can be very powerful, and I totally agree about, you know, learning about it, educating and finding the right tools for the right thing. I mean, do you think as well, AI and the certain things that can be produced from it, could there be more fake news, do you think?
Yeah, I think I've actually written an article about this year because I was really researching AI writers. Obviously that affects what me and you do, and I was just having a look at you know, if they what that could mean. So I think at some point there will be so many articles online that have been written using AI writers that the quality of those articles is going to be very poor. And unfortunately, when you use an AI writer, it can only use the prompts that you give it and the sources you tell it to look at, and it will scour the internet. And if the more content that is written by AI writers that is available, that then becomes the source material, and it will get to a point where it's just regurgitating the same information over and over again. So I think there is definitely an issue with that, and it's very interesting that Google has kind of acknowledged that that is going to be an issue. So there's this thing called Google EEAT, which you can look into, and then also this month they've just released an update. The way that these updates are going is basically placing an emphasis on like first-hand knowledge and experience and checking the credibility of the person who is writing those articles. And they've said that it's basically in response to this kind of thing, you know, a lot of people using AI writers, or there's a lot of misinformation online. So I think the message that I would tell people who are writing their own content is just use your experience, because if you're a voice in your industry, you have all those years of experience and knowledge. So it's a lot of the time it's in their head, but it's just like getting it out. Yeah. And you can use an AI writer to help you to structure that and get that out. But it's not so much something to completely rely on.
Yeah.
There's definitely needs to be a human element to it as well.
I was just going to say that human touch, for me, I'll still stand by it day in, day out. There's nothing better than having that sort of, the human feel coming through, whether it's through a brand or through a story. I don't know how you feel.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they always say that storytelling is the best marketing, and it is true. So it's all about kind of helping businesses to portray what it is and that special sauce that makes the business special in the first place. Really trying to get that across in everything that you're writing and putting out there.
And I suppose for yourself as well, whether we're talking about AI or research, does that stand for whether it's a small business, a one-man band, so to speak, or one-person band, so to speak, or even up to, the larger corporations? Is it still just as valuable no matter what size of business that you are?
Yeah, I think so. I think the key thing is knowing how to write a good prompt. And also, you do kind of need the writing skills to be able to, you don't know what you don't know. So if you're relying on AI to write something of a high quality, then the only person checking that might be somebody who doesn't have good writing skills, then you're only going to get what you put in. Whereas if you have the writing skills to begin with, I'll never use AI to write something and then be like, yep, there we go, job done, don't need to change that, that's fine. You always constantly need to rewrite it. But it for example, you could use it to write a blog outline so that you know which topics to cover within a blog, but I wouldn't use it to just write a blog.
No.
So yeah, it's just kind of knowing how to use it. I think if small businesses can maybe take some classes or really explore and just kind of get to know how to use the tools, there is a lot of benefit there. However, what you were saying about large companies, something to watch out for. So I think a few large companies had been putting, for example, writing a press release. Sometimes you have to embargo information. And people had been using ChatGPT to write press releases with very sensitive information, which as soon as you put it into something like ChatGPT, it then becomes publicly available information. It's interesting to note that Microsoft has something called Bing Chat Enterprise. And when you go into that with your Microsoft account, it says that it's protected information. So Microsoft is saying that information won't leave your organization. So that's another thing to consider when you are using these different platforms is what is the information being used for, and is anybody else going to have access to that?
Yeah, it's being aware, and again, not just educating yourself, but being aware, of what you're educating others with and how you're doing it. And for the future then, Kirsty, I don't know if you've got any sort of opinion on the future of digital marketing in going forward, but also what's the future for you, and where do you see, Peacock digital marketing going? You launched in 2020. We're now in 2024. What are your plans?
So my sort of dream really is to just grow a small agency that really nurtures creative talent and really appreciates creative talent. So I think working in journalism, and I'm sure you've probably seen this as well, and I've spoken to a lot of different marketers from a lot of different backgrounds, and they've worked at different companies. What happens a lot of the time is creative people, no matter if that's somebody who's a copywriter or a designer or an artist, they're just not appreciated. It's not, I don't know why as a society we don't seem to value art and creativity as much as we perhaps value other things, and I think it's just really important, because in terms of looking towards the future, that is really what is going to be setting us apart as humans, is that sense of humanity and creativity.
Definitely.
So yeah, I think it's just really important to nurture that where we can, really.
Brilliant. Kirsty, thank you so much for coming into the studio.
Thank you for having me.
No, thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure. That's Kirsty Nelms from Peacock Digital Marketing here on Business Spotlight in partnership with Cross Rhythm City Radio and Baba Baboon.
Business Spotlight, shining a light on our local business community. Brought to you by Cross Rhythms and Baba Baboon.